Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-draft show after the 2025 draft. I hope that I'm coming in clear. I seem to be having some problems on my end, but I don't think Ken's seeing them, which I think means that you may not be seeing them. That's hopefully the case. Regardless, let's get Ken in here because if we get a stable connection through Ken, it doesn't matter if I'm crashing my plane into the side of the mountain. Ken can keep this show flying on in that case. So you know what that means. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny, folks. Ken, I always got to say it is a blast for me to watch after we do our pre-draft show, and we get the likes of Sammy on there. We get the likes of Jay Bukala on there, and then we see these guys breaking it down and cutting it up on the broadcast and just everything they kind of know about this. We're spoiled to have those guys on. Your just quick thoughts and takeaways from this draft as a whole before we bring in our guest. What do you got?
You bet. Awesome day for Manitoba, first and foremost. We're going to have a special guest to discuss that in about, in a little bit here. But 7 Manitobans chosen today, which is one shy of the record of 8, which is set 3 previous times. Coming 1 year after the Manitoba, the Keystone Province only had 1 guy chosen last year, Brandon Product Clark Caswell, in the 5th to the Seattle Kraken. So super fun day. Fortunately, we got some folks who have some insight on some of these guys. And to your point about Sam and Jason Bukala and Sammy Cosentino, just absolutely crushed it the last couple of days here on the broadcasts. And it was great to listen to their insight. One of the names that I had was Sasha Boumedienne. I did talk with Jason earlier, but I don't think I popped his name in the show. So bogey for me on that one, but no surprise what we saw from them. In terms of what the Jets were able to do, certainly adding quite a bit of skill and speed into the organization here. They had a limited number of picks, but some big swings and some, seems like they got a couple of big hits, at least from talking, and listening to them talk on the shows here today. They're super pumped about the Swedish winger in the 5th round. And Boumedienne is a guy, Sean, super interesting first round pick. He was a guy who played at Boston University for Jay Pandolfo, longtime NHLer, 19 years, young guy, didn't play a ton in the first half, but absolutely crushed it down the stretch and during the playoff run, and then went back with his colleagues at his age, and absolutely killed it at the U18s in Texas, setting a new tournament record for assists in 13 and points by a defenseman. So pretty impressive player. And I loved what I heard from him on the, we'll dig into it a little bit more later, but really liked what I heard there. He exudes I wouldn't call it a quiet confidence, but it wasn't a cockiness, but there was a real confidence to his demeanor. This is someone who knows what he wants and knows what he has to do to get there. So I was incredibly impressed by Sasha during his call. And, obviously, every GM and director of amateur scouting is going to be thrilled with who they got. But I mean, this is legitimately, another one of those situations where the guy's high on the list and they get him where they get him. And I think there's a lot to be excited about. And then obviously a really cool story with Owen Martin here going to the Jets, the Oak Bank product. And again, you've got some great insight considering that's the neck of the woods, the Eastman Selects neck of the woods that you hail from, Sean. Very cool to see that story and just to see his enthusiasm during the Zoom call here earlier today. So again, every team loves what they get on days 1 and 2 of the NHL draft, but I think the Jets have plenty of reason for optimism and excitement, given some of the names that they were selected during the past couple of days here.
I got to be honest here. I'm having some technical issues on my side of things here. I think everyone else can hear Ken. I can't. It's a jumble. I can't hear Ken. But if I'm being honest, I'm not listening to Ken most of the time. So it'll be kind of the same thing as what usually happens on this show. We're going to bring in Brad Purdie, who has coached some of the kids going on here. You got to think behind this. Every time you see these young kids who are coming up here, there is a community that gets them to that point. And, that's parents, that's family, that's friends of families, that's former teammates, parents, that's coaches, all those kind of things. So this is a day of absolute pride for all those people. So I'm sure Brad is feeling a lot of pride on this day. Brad Purdie coached a number of these players here. I'm a selfish guy, Brad, so I want to talk about some of the people that I know in this. I'm going to start with Peyton Kettles. Peyton Kettles' dad is from Lac Du Bonnet, where I am right now. I grew up playing hockey and baseball with him, saw him get drafted into the NHL, saw his career ended by an unfortunate accident when he took a puck to the head on the bench when he was down playing with the Louisiana Ice Skaters. But he transitioned to being a hockey dad. And I got to tell you, Brad, I remember seeing him post these videos on Facebook of these kids when they were like 5 and they were doing box jumps in the garage and they were working hard. And then we see Peyton grow into this guy that he becomes this monster who goes, and I believe he was drafted 5th or 6th overall in the WHL draft, the first Manitoban taken in his year, and has just continued to rise. I had expected he was going to go in the second round. Did you have any expectation he would go as high as he did?
You know what? Thanks for having me on, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, all of these guys that went today, the one thing that you mentioned earlier is just work, right? That's what they do. They work and they put in a lot of hard work up until now. And I think anybody that's at that level will tell you this is just the beginning for them, right? So when it comes to Peyton, obviously the first thing you see, and without even speaking to him, is his size. I think he's listed at 6'5", a right shot, 6'5" defenseman that has a good skill set. But I think one thing that's really going to help him is just the sandpaper that he plays with. He is a hard guy to play against. He's a throwback, I would think, a Chris Pronger type guy. You want to come to the front of the net, you're gonna know that you were in front of the net, and he creates space for himself and his teammates. So super excited for Peyton and his family. The nice thing for me coaching these guys at the U15 level is, I get them as young teenagers and watch them grow over, the 2-3 years they're with our program into young men and now into, potential NHLers.
Yeah, very cool, Brad. Had a chance to speak with Peyton earlier today, and again, as you would imagine, pretty much over the moon here. And for folks who don't know, I mean, he because of the variance of the lists, he was there last night on Friday. So, you have that, maybe you go late 20s, early 30s. He's got to go through the stress. And, now you go back and now try to sleep. And then you get up in the morning for the next day. And now you're hoping you don't have to wait too long. But, he goes 39th, and he told me a great story about being a Penguins fan. I mean, how did his game evolve? And was he one of those guys who was kind of big and mean at 14, 15? Or is this something that edge is something that he's added that element to his game as he's grown into his body?
No, he's always had that edge. The problem at our level at U15, when you have a kid that's 6'1", 6'2", most times you're playing against guys that are under 5'7", 5'8". So arms are down and he hits a kid, it's always a head contact, right? So there was some frustration in his game just because he was getting penalties because he hit guys too hard. And just trying to remind him as you go up in levels, and then when you get to your ultimate level, that everyone's going to be as big as you, maybe bigger. So those penalties go away. So don't ever change that. Don't ever change that part of your game, right? So yeah, he's developed into just a hard guy to play against. And I think at the NHL level, those guys are coveted on your team, right? The guys that can keep pucks out of your net and keep guys out from in front of your goalie. Make a good first pass and then let the forwards do the rest.
Brad, you see them, like you said, you see these guys at the age of U15, and so you're seeing them kind of at the front end of it. How obvious is it at that time who the kids are who are kind of that extra level? Like if you would have fast forwarded from this group 3-4 years ago, how many of the guys today who went in the draft from Manitoba do you think would have been on your list? How accurate would your list have been of who got drafted today?
Yeah. I mean, it's not obviously easy to predict. I think with some guys it is, with others. But I mean, again, he has the size. Being a right shot defenseman, those guys are not easy to find. So when it was coming up to the draft time, I had spoken with a number of scouts, and a lot of them had the same comment. They were very high on him, just on his overall game. But they many times it was mentioned this guy has the potential to be a pro. So I think when that stuff starts to get thrown around in the conversations, you start to say, you know what, these guys do it for a living. They know exactly what they're looking for. I'm just trying to help these guys, whatever I can provide with them and get them to that level. But it was mentioned quite often that this guy is going to be a pro. So yeah, good for him for putting in the work. And now, he's a guy that, not long after their season was done, he was already at the rink up in the gym training and all that stuff. So he is dedicated to his craft, and he's putting in the work, and he's getting the payoff.
Then Matthew Gard is a guy who had a solid season with the Red Deer Rebels. What do you remember about him, and what's it like to sort of see the player he's blossoming into here?
Yeah, another guy at our level that was a taller player at that time, and again has the sandpaper that he's going to have to use to his advantage to make a name for himself in the league. He doesn't back down from anybody. Again, a guy that took penalties, or got penalties, I should say, at our level just because he was bigger, and he loves to hit guys. So he's not afraid to go to the inside. He's not afraid to go to the front of the net. He's got a really, really good stick. Knocks a lot of pucks down. Has really good skills. So yeah, and just both of these guys, just great kids to work with. Very coachable. Outstanding families. Very supportive, and never really got involved in the coaching side of it. They just wanted to make sure that their sons were being respectable, respectful and coachable, and just wanted to make sure that they're doing everything in their power to give them a chance.
Not wanting to ask you out of turn about some players that you didn't have as didn't work with as much, but I'm sure the Manitoba kids that are coming up, you've got a little bit of a look at those players as they're coming through. So Owen Martin's going to be someone that Jets fans and fans of the Kenny and Renny Show, our listeners, are very, very interested in. What are your takeaways from the player that the Jets were able to get in him?
Yeah, a highly skilled player. I remember watching him. I never coached him. He was at the U18 level, but just a guy that controls the pace, controls the puck, sees the ice really well, has a good knack for scoring. So, I can't remember what he's listed at. He wasn't overly big when we had him, but he's a guy that knows where to be on the ice, knows where his teammates are on the ice, and is a really nice facilitator.
Then how about Hayden Papanekis? I know, again, he was at the U18 level at the Rink Academy, but, really big, another big, strong guy, 6'5", 203. I haven't watched him live, but just got off the phone with him. Seems like, again, really, typical Manitoba guy, very, respectful kid, but a guy that plays with some edge and some bite. And I mean, we look at that Canadians team, that's an element that they could certainly add down the road. How about his game? What do you know about him?
For sure. I mean, obviously a big body, right? So I think that'll come in handy in Montreal with the skill forward set that they have there. Another guy that can put the puck in the net. Again, a big body that's going to go to the front of the net, not shy away from that type of stuff. I think one thing that he did learn coming through our program is the work ethic that you need to have, and obviously it's there for him right now, being recognized by Montreal. So just putting in the work and hoping good things for those two guys.
Brad, I'm going to be honest. If you haven't been the kind of guy who walks around through life using your physicality to intimidate or get what you want, you look like you could if you decided to. So you know what it's like to have that kind of angle in life. I wanted your take on the kind of what I felt was like a little bit of a return back to the old school of prioritizing size in a draft. Like, I mean, this was I wouldn't. I'm glad I didn't have to work this draft because I got to talk to Macklin Celebrini last year after he went first when I was there and looked like I was a normal sized human being. On this draft floor, I think I would have looked pretty tiny. What did you make of kind of the way that this draft just went back to the kind of the old school Giants of the 90s and early 2000s?
Yeah, I mean, I had some guys over last night, a bunch of coaches, and we were watching it, and that comment was made quite often. Holy cow, that guy's big, right? Like I've never met Gary Bettman. I don't think he's an overly big guy, but these guys were towering over him. So, I mean, these guys are big, but they can all play, right? They can all skate. They've all got the hands. They've all got the brains. It's a different game than it was, 15, 20 years ago with the big guys that could just get in the way. They can't get in the way now. These guys have got to be able to skate, and obviously they can.
Even too, a guy like Burke Hood, the Manitoba goalie that went, he's 6'3" and almost 200 pounds already. Big guy. What do you know about the Brandon product there?
Yeah, so that team, that '07 group, I had Burke on my team as well. So we had a big team. To his advantage, a big goalie, when somebody looks up, there's not a lot to shoot at. So he learned his angles. He learned, just to battle. So again, yeah, hoping good things for that guy too. He's come a long way as far as developing into the goalie that he is today, and with his work ethic and all that stuff. I think, kids that are, I'm going to say put on a pedestal at 14 and 15 because they are bigger or just better than everybody else. Sometimes that work gets left behind, but all three of those guys that I had, Burke, Matty, and Peyton, all have that work ethic, and they're in the gym constantly now and just working to get better all the time.
So as Ken was saying, 7 Manitobans taken. So this draft say about the job that our province is doing at producing players?
Yeah, I'm sorry you cut out there I missed that question.
I'll just repeat it again.
Okay.
As Ken was saying, 7 Manitobans taken in the draft this time around. What does this draft say about the job our province is doing producing players?
Yeah, obviously this was a fantastic year for Manitoba hockey players. In my experience coaching the different age levels, it seems to be, one good year, one bad year with talent, with whatever it is at the age group. So hopefully this trend continues. I heard you earlier I don't know if it was last year, with one only kid taken, and so I think the future is bright for sure. I think, the game is always evolving. All these kids are always, working on their skills and all that stuff. So it's turned into, even at that age of 15, 16, to almost a 12-month job for some of these guys. And, right or wrong at that age, I don't know, but it seems to be everyone is doing it that. So hopefully the trend continues for Manitoba players.
And Brad, I know we're talking mostly about the draft, but curious because we have your insight here. I mean, with the changing rules regarding NCAA and Western Hockey League, what kind of impact is that going to have on your program in terms of, I know it's your job to get them ready for that next level, no matter what they choose, but what are you seeing in terms of commitments and how that could impact, hockey, whether it's grassroots or into the Western League and the NCAA with people, kind of the movement happening the way that it has so far?
Yeah, well, hopefully what it's going to do is just allow players to have a little bit more runway to develop into being pro hockey players. I think if you look now, kids that are coming out of college at 23, 24, I mean, they're men, right? Versus a kid that's maybe 18, 19 coming out of WHL. There's just it's a different strength. I think what might happen too is if a number of these high-end WHL or CHL players start going to the NCAA, it's going to open up some doors for some kids that maybe wouldn't have had a chance otherwise. So the trickle-down effect may hurt the junior A's or the junior B's or some of those type of leagues, but I think it's going to allow kids an opportunity to showcase themselves that maybe wouldn't otherwise get seen. So if the top dogs are moving to the NCAA, I can imagine there's going to be some schools out there that maybe think, hey, maybe we should get into the hockey game. That's, the southern states or those type of warmer climate areas that might throw a hockey team out there and just open up the doors for more players.
I think it's a fascinating conversation, and one of the reasons why is you really know from talking with the people and talking even the players who are trying to navigate this. It's this whole new world that they're walking into. I kind of want to talk about some changes that you would have been right kind of at the epicenter of that I feel have been happening. I'm having a lot of conversations with people out in the Greater Toronto Hockey League, and I'm talking mainly about kind of like the schooling system that we've started to see being prominent in the WHL, the academy system. I've got a bunch of friends whose kids are going to. So Breck Liskey, you've probably heard the name. Good friends with Lonnie Liskey. His kid went through that area. I know that my good friend Dwight, his son Benson Hurst, just got a scholarship or signed a letter of intent with Northern Michigan, and he went through Pilot Mound Hockey Academy here. And one thing that I've had said to me about that is, if someone said to me, hey, take a look at the skill guys that are starting to be taken year after year out of the WHL. It's not the old farm boy anymore who gets in and goes and plays a rough and tumble game. The WHL is starting to like rise its stock on being a skill league. And if you want to know where that's coming from, it's this academy system that the players are starting to go through. I wonder if you could kind of lend your expertise to what you've seen in the changes, maybe over the last decade, on how the WHL typical player out of the dub is changing to the point now that, next year we're probably having Gavin McKenna go first overall. The year after that, probably Landon DuPont going first overall. What's happening in the West, and what have people like yourself done to kind of change what the West is?
Yeah, so the academy settings are, obviously they're different than your typical, and I can only speak to Manitoba, the AAA settings, right? So I mean, our guys are on the ice 5 days a week. There's dedicated skill coaches. We just have the opportunity to kind of really break down skills, break down video. I mean, not that other teams aren't doing that. We just have a more of a window to do that. If you're in a rural program, you might practice once a week, twice a week max. Play games on the weekends where, our players it's kind of like a 9 to 5 type job. They start school at 7:30 till noon, and then they're at the rink from 12:30 till 4:30. So in that afternoon time, we can do video. They're in the gym, they're on the ice, whether it's full team practices or skill practices. It just allows for us to kind of really break down different types of skills and help them develop those. I think the other thing too that our program does and the academy settings does is just kind of it mimics a WHL schedule. So, we do a lot of travel, a lot of bus miles are put on throughout the year. So, the guys learn how to travel. They learn how to manage their bodies, their hydration, their nutrition, how to sleep on the road, making sure they're getting rested. So when they get to the WHL or whatever, a junior league, they know how to do all that stuff. They don't have to learn how to travel, which might take away from their on ice game. So our guys are ready when they get there, and they know how to move around in the gym. Our guys in Testify do a phenomenal job, you know, building their off ice strength, which obviously translates to their game on the ice. So I think that just the travel, the amount of hockey that these guys get throughout the day and the school year, I think it's the way it's trending is that's the way it seems to be going. I mean, you're always going to have your guys that are, they just for family reasons, financial reasons can't attend the academies, and there's nothing wrong with the other stuff. It's just, a lot of these guys that I'm seeing drafted now in the high rounds, I say, oh man, I coached that guy. That guy's good. I know that guy. Like I've seen his game in person from the bench, right? So you mentioned a bunch of guys, Liskey, like, yeah, he was at NAX and we coached against him, and Hurst's younger brother was in our program this year. So
Yeah, Owen. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's not for everybody. It is a demanding. It's a lot of hard work, but I think the payoff is there in the end for guys that can get through it.
Just before you move on, I just wanted a quick follow up. You did a great job of explaining the how you guys are kind of creating the change. Can you give me an idea of how you think that's changed what we would see as the stereotypical WHL player that was really kind of a stereotype for decades and has really kind of started to shift and change over the last number of years?
Yeah, I think the game in general is just turned into a skill game. I mean, there's no, I mean, there. you know, I'm 52, so I'm from a little bit, the older generation, and growing up, and every now and then, you're going to get hit really hard in the game of hockey. It's a fast moving game, and I'm not I mean, I was never a fighter guy like that, but for someone every time they hit somebody to have to answer with a fight, that part I don't really, am not a big fan of. The skill and the, even in the playoffs, the tight checking but it's still such a skilled game. It's crazy how fast these guys can move and how big they are. So I think the trend is just making sure these guys, everybody can skate, everybody can handle the puck. You have to be able to do it at high speeds, and if we can help guys get there, I mean, I was fortunate enough to play professional hockey for a while, and if I can help one kid get to that level, then I've done my job, and I'm super proud of that. But we've had some good kids come out of our program. I mean, our poster child right now is Seth Jarvis, and he's doing okay with him for himself right now, right? So yeah, I'm just looking forward to watching these guys continue to develop and grow into young men and NHL stars.
Yeah, and again, because we have your insight, I mean, what was it like to see the year that Seth had? Everything from the way that he's playing to being on Team Canada. I mean, what does that say? And for guys in the program to be able to hold up Seth as being such an incredible young man, and the way that he plays with that tenacity, but to show your young guys that, hey, if you fall around this path, maybe one day this could be you. What's it like to have a kind of a poster child like that at your disposal?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Seth is a special player, obviously, but again, I had him when he was 14 years old, one of the most awkward kids at that age. And right now, and I still remember watching, one of the first interviews he had when he got called up to Carolina, and how well spoken he was, and just, man, this guy has grown up. And I see him at the rink all the time now, and you would never know, just the way he carries himself, that this guy's a bona fide NHL superstar. Like, he's so down to earth and just a fantastic kid. Comes from a great family, and his brother Caden is awesome too. So, and he's never want to say no to helping out the guys, right? So if he's around the rink and guys are around, it wasn't many years ago that he was sitting in their seats, right? So to say hi, to sign an autograph, to shake a hand, he's always willing to do that.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick follow up there too. I mean, I remember talking to him. I mean, this is a guy who was a really good quarterback. I mean, what do you remember about some of the conversations in terms of maybe helping to influence him choose hockey at that point?
Yeah, I mean, he came to us to play hockey. I think he had made that commitment, and you could see that. I'm thinking back over the years, there's nobody that I've had that once they cross that offensive blue line wants to score more than Seth. It's just, and it doesn't matter. He could be carrying 2, 3 guys on his back. He's taking that puck to the net, and he's still doing that now against grown men. So he is definitely a special talent.
Special talent, and I got to say, from a broadcaster's point of view, just a dream kid to cover, right? Because he's sure a lot of fun. Ken, anything else you need to ask Brad?
No, appreciate his time. Thanks for squeezing us in and for shedding some light on some great topics here, Brad. Wishing you all the best in the off. I'm not sure I know there's not much of an off season, but thanks for that.
There's a kind of a golf season, so.
Fair enough.
Ken knows what you're talking about. Brad, it's always great for our listeners to have someone on here who knows what they're talking about, because they spend a lot of time with two guys who don't know what they're talking about. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. And hey, congratulations to you on the role that you played, having a number of young men's dream come true. That's you should be proud. Appreciate
Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Thanks. Yeah. Bye.
Cheers.
All right, Ken, let's just go down the list of the Jets picks, or
go to Carter Bear first.
You want to go to Carter? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, take it away with Carter.
No, okay. I was just going to say, for folks who don't know, I mean, this is an awesome story. I mean, another guy who just had an unbelievable year. And again, we got the detailed breakdown from Jason Bukla and Sam Cosentino the other day, but, super proud Manitoban from West St. Paul, but he also has great links to the Peguis band. So, I mean, there was a massive party on Friday night out there. My colleague Mike McIntyre from the Free Press wrote about it and had some insight from folks that were at the draft party for Carter Bear. And I think it's just awesome and great to see and listen to him talk. And again, we're talking about that model of player, like another great Manitoban who loves the game so much, and just an incredible story. And I think he's going to a great spot. And now, again, for him, he's going to learn quickly that in the Red Wings organization, they want you to develop, and that probably means time with the Grand Rapids Griffins. But here's a guy who just had an unbelievable season as a sniper here before he got hurt, and I think it's just a great place for him to be. I think it's a team on the rise, especially after getting John Gibson today in that trade. To be around an organization run by Steve Yzerman, I think is going to be great for him. And again, we know guys like Andrew Kopp, guys that are in that organization, Dylan Larkin. I think he's gonna really flourish by going to that training camp this year and being around some of those guys. Doesn't sound like he's going to be ready for development camp in terms of the on ice, given the injury and the recovery. But love this story, and it's great to see Manitobans going in the top half of the first round. And again, just sounds like an awesome person. And from all that we hear and read about him, guy really appreciates the opportunity. So really neat to see.
So anyone who listened to the pre-draft show knows that I think that this is going to be a draft that we look back on, and I get it. I understand the whole thing. And you saw the results. I mean, we debated on how this draft was going to go, and the fact that there was basically supposed to be a drop off around 14 and then all the way to kind of like 50, whether that was going to create less movement or more movement. It clearly created a lot of movement, because in that kind of aggregate of players was people that would stand out to certain teams, and they'd jump up and be like, hey, there's one guy in here and we want to get that guy. And you saw it happen over and over again. I got to say, Ken, I love it when that happens, because I'm sure it would be amazing to be drafted regardless. But if you're that kid who's sitting there and all of a sudden the Philadelphia Flyers make a trade with the Seattle Kraken to get that pick, and they pick your name, you know that they sat there and they thought, we want this guy and we need to act to go get this guy. It's not, you could always say, well, maybe, just maybe, when the team picked me, they so wanted to pick the guy right before me or the guy right before that, and I'm just who they landed on, right? So I love it when that happens. But
that's what happened to Kettles, right? That's what happened to Kettles. They traded up to
Exactly.
get him because they wanted him, which is awesome.
Pittsburgh saw him. They wanted him. I think he went higher than most people thought that he would go. And I can tell you that if you saw a lot of people, it would just have been another name. I'm sitting there and I'm watching a good old Lactabani boy in his dad and his mom, and both of them in tears. And when I watch that, I take a look and I see, I remember being in line in Costco and running into his dad and saying, boy, oh boy, I'm watching those videos of you putting their boys through their paces, and good on you. And and he talked about how they just, because he's got a younger son as well, who's a goaltender, and how they want to get in there. He's just like, okay, you want to work? Here's what you can do. Here's what you can do. And the boys just wanted to work. So I just kind of talked at the point. I'm a big process guy. If you go through that and you spend your life doing that process and you don't make the NHL, there's still a massive amount of value in having lived that life. You know what I mean? So anyways, but you can see all those times, all the times in the garage, all the times driving to hockey, it all kind of paid off there. So it was nice to see that. But to get back to Carter Bear, he's one of the guys that I take a look at, and I think, because I keep hearing about this drop off. And if you hear about the drop off, he falls below where that drop off is supposed to be. I think Carter Bear is going to be a really, really great NHL player. I think that he's one of the reasons I look at this draft, and I think there's going to be players from this draft that end up being players down the road that you and I cover in really big moments at really big events, jumping up during the playoffs, doing certain things. I think there's a lot of those guys in this draft. So that's why I found this to be an interesting draft. And he was one of the ones who kind of stood out to me, because like I've said, I've got some buddies who've got some kids playing in the WHL, and one of them plays on Everett with the Silver Tips. And that's where Landon DuPont goes. Folks, get used to that name. He's probably going to be the first overall pick. From what I've heard, he is otherworldly. And I think he set the record this year for rookie scoring by a defenseman in the WHL. Ken, if he didn't, the names that he's with, it's outstanding, and how young he is. He was just 15. He's an exceptional status player. But through that and paying attention to Everett, I saw this Carter Bear over and over and over again. And sometimes we would check in and I'd watch some of these games, to see my buddy's kid and how he was doing. And I just couldn't help how impressed I was with Carter Bear and how he compared to a lot of the players who were drafted last year in the WHL. And I just thought every time and every moment he was constantly holding his own. I think that this is a really good, really good pick for the Detroit Red Wings. And I also think there was EJ Raddick did, if you were watching the draft today, did an interview with Steve Yzerman. And I just thought it was one of those things in Steve Yzerman that they truly were really excited to get that player in that spot. I think you walk away from that and have that pick, and you're thinking you did extremely well for yourselves. Do you want to get to the Winnipeg Jets? And let's start right at the very top with Sasha, and correct me, because I don't think I'll get this right, Ken, but Sasha
Boumedian, I think, but he did officially announce it. Kelly Moore did ask him for it, and I listened to it, but I'm fumbling that now too. So just quickly on him, I mean, for me, so impressed by the kid, Sean. I mean, I know you're on the call also, the Zoom call. I just felt like he exuded this confidence, and this is a guy who, you know, has had his passport stamped in many different places. He's been a bit of a hockey nomad because his father Joseph was a pro player for a long time, 47 games in the NHL, but did a lot of hard miles in Finland and a bunch of other leagues. So I think that, you know, he's just had this great influence on his son. And it's allowed him to kind of be around the world. I mean, he won a couple of championships with Karpat in the SM Liga in Finland. You know, played in the minors, played in the KHL, played in Switzerland, played in the Swedish Elite League. Just kind of bounced around a bunch, and, you know, then was, you know, part of the Columbus Blue Jackets organization. And, you know, he played in the Blue Jackets AAA program, and then ended up in Youngstown of the USHL. And for folks who maybe have forgotten, the Jets had a pretty big hit in Youngstown by the name of Kyle Connor that worked out fairly well in the first round. And again, I'm not here to say that he's Kyle Connor, but another program. It's a long-winded way of saying adaptable. This is an adaptable young man. He's moved around a lot. He has incredible passion for the game, and he has this incredible drive. He knows what he wants, and he knows what he has to do to get there. So I came away so impressed by how he handled himself, how he conducted himself. And again, he's got this great support system at home. In terms of a father who played in the NHL, and he made sure to mention his mother as well. I loved what I heard from him. And again, now it's up to him to keep the progression going, but he plays an incredible program at BU, coached by Jay Pandolfo, as I mentioned. He knows what it's like to be in the NHL. He was a longtime NHLer. So he also knows that his dad's journey wasn't the journey that he envisioned in being a guy who played 10 years in the show. You know, up and down kind of guy, 47 games, got in the register, which is an incredible accomplishment in itself. But a lot of hard miles in the pro game. You know, there was probably a misstep or two along the way that he can probably help his son maybe avoid in his own personal and professional journey. This is a guy who's going to be playing on the World Junior team with Alphonse Frey, last year's second rounder from the Jets. So that immediately is a big benefit if it happens. It's not to say they'll be defense partners. They're both, you know, left shot D mobile guys. But Midian is probably, you know, maybe running the power play. We'll see what happens. But again, I just think this is a, you know, really good pick. Again, I understand, you know, folks at home and in the chat room. You know, I talked to Sean. We thought Fiddler would maybe be the guy at that number, given his size and shot and handedness and all that. But as Kevin Cheveldayoff reminded us in the Zoom call, you know, sometimes the handedness isn't as important as we make it seem like, right? I mean, you got to get the best player, and they looked at a big mobile guy. A guy who's 6 foot, 6'1", you know, close to 6'1". He's got a high ceiling, learning how to defend better and better. No, he's not 6'4" like you know, Vern Fiddler's son Blake, but this is a guy that the Jets think very highly of, and you know, it's a fast game, so he's the modern day defenseman. I mean, and for all the folks saying, oh, well, he's small, he's not going to be able to make it. Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't think that that's the case, but now again, it's up to him to show what he's going to develop into. But he seems like a guy who's incredibly motivated and intelligent, and I expect him to be an impact player. Now, it's going to take a little while, but I expect that he's, you know, going to be a guy that you know, Jets fans are going to grow to be pretty fond of.
Paul Maurice always used to talk about coaches' kids, right? He
Yep.
always used to say, you've got these guys and they grew up under a coach, and it's just like it's a fast forward for these players if they use it properly. Now, clearly, there's lots of NHLers out there who had kids that didn't make the NHL, and there's lots of coaches out there who had kids that didn't make the NHL, right? But when you get that player that does make it and that has that kind of background and that pedigree, and when you see someone who handles themselves as composed as what we saw, that's something that I always, like, right off the bat, I think it marks me. And what I saw just briefly in a lot of the clips that I've seen of him playing, Ken, is, a young guy, one of the youngest guys in the NCAA this last year. And what I saw from him was, I think when you're a younger player and you have the confidence to play in a way that you don't play hair on fire, you don't try to do too much, you just kind of stay composed. And I think what makes it hard to do that is a lot of times when you're the younger guy and you're coming along and you're trying to stay composed is you're getting burnt every once in a while, right? It's not working out for you because everyone is, like, you're not quite where everybody is. And I can tell you this, the way I would have responded as an athlete was, I'm getting burnt. I need to try harder. And then you get to be that guy who does too much and you go all over the place, right? What I see from him in his composure and in his play is a player that is very okay and very knowledgeable and understands this is what I need to do to succeed, and I'm going to stay within that. And it may not work to the best of the abilities, but as my abilities grow, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's another, I think it's one of the things that if you are a scout and you're looking at a player and you're saying, I think this player is here right now, but I think he's going to end up here. That's one of the things that you're looking for. And I thought that he had it in spades, in when we talked with him yesterday, how he handled himself, but also from what I see from him on the ice. I'm not saying that he's going to end up being this specific kind of player, but what I am saying is I think he's calm and has the kind of composure that whatever there is for him to get to, he will get to. My take on the guy.
And the other part of that too, Sean, he's not playing a cautious game. He's also not playing a incredibly risky game, but he's not afraid of the moment and he's not afraid to make mistakes, because with that speed, and we'll stick in the Eastman region. One of the guys I played with is Dane Litke, Sean. So Dane was so fast. He didn't make a lot of mistakes.
Bozier man.
Exactly. Didn't make a lot of mistakes, but if he did, he was fast enough to catch the guy anyway. So again, I think that it's a very composed individual. One of the big things about Sasha as well, Sean, played his best hockey at the biggest moments, right? So you had to earn it in the first half when he was getting his feet wet. But when it came time to Frozen Four time and, Bean Pod and tournament, big time tournaments, trying to get in regionals, he's out there playing 24 minutes as a 19-year-old kid, 18, 19-year-old kid. And that is something you don't see a whole lot of. So playing at a high level of competition, against bigger, stronger guys. And he didn't shy away from anything. He's not I don't think he's a big banger on the back end, but skilled guy who's not afraid. And he's embraced the two-way component. And like I said, when he went back with his own age group, with his peer group, he was absolutely domination station. So that's something that would have encouraged. I just asked Mark Hillier, is that something that reinforced their viewpoint on the player or showed another level? And he said it just reinforced how they felt about him and really was able to shine. And again, this is a guy who's going to take on a big role with his team next year as he goes back as a sophomore. Yes, he's a couple of years away, but this is a guy who's not going to be afraid of the moment. And that's what I like about him. I like the composure, but I also like what you mentioned, Sean. This guy's not afraid. He's not afraid to make mistakes, but he's also not afraid to dig in either. He immediately was talking about adding layers and levels to his game. Yes, foundation is good, but I got to be better if I want to be an NHLer. And this isn't a guy that's just going to, do his celebratory dance by making it. He wants to be an impact player at the next level also. So that's something that really, again, and these guys have tons of confidence. We get it. But this is a guy who knows what it's going to take to get there. And, I expect him to get there, whether it's in a couple of years or whether it's 2 or 3 years, we'll see.
Yeah, I love using this analogy, the old degree of difficulty with the diving. This is a player who went and this shows that fearlessness that you're talking about, Ken. Like he goes out and he's trying the hardest dives out there rather than staying at, a degree of difficulty dive that he knows he's going to pull off and it's going to look great. He's not afraid of it looking a little bit rough and going and doing the super high degree of difficulty dive because he knows that when he gets into a situation where he's with everyone else who's doing the easier degree of difficulty dives, his game is going to flash. That's what we saw from him. And a very interesting looking guy. Okay, I want to take this next one, Owen Martin, their pick
yes, sir.
at 92. I'm going to start with this one. And Ken, one of the rules of thumb is as a journalist, you are never supposed to burn and reveal your sources. But when you spent time in senior hockey with that source punching you in the face repeatedly, I'm not afraid to burn them. So I went out and I know that my buddy Lonnie Liskey, who I play Baker's
my
hockey
former
with,
teammate, buddy, my former teammate in Winkler.
1994's first overall pick in the NHL draft, and another Beausejour's own Lonnie Liskey. His son, I mentioned him earlier, Breck Liskey, playing with the Silvertips in the WHL. I believe he was taken 10th overall in the WHL draft his year. Next year will be his draft year. So because of that, I knew that he had a relationship with Owen Martin because his son Breck and Owen have been playing together since they were kids. So I got a hold of him. He ignored my phone call at first. I texted him and then he said, give me a call. And I was like, yeah, like I just gave you a call. You're screening your calls. But he had an excuse because I said, okay, I need you to give me a scouting report on Owen Martin. And the first thing he does, and forgive me, folks, this isn't going to be prepared as well as I would like it to be, but the first thing he does is sends me this text, if I can pop it up here. And that is
well
Lonnie on the right. And that is Owen on the left, because Lonnie and Breck were at the draft party with him in the moment that he was picked. Extremely close family. So I got the goods. I got the goods from Lonnie on Owen here. Said, since the age of 6, they have been calling him Captain Owen. He was flashing on a team full of stars, right? Because they represented at that brick tournament. And, these are players who are like the cream of the crop from the time that they're young. And at that time, Owen is standing out above everybody else, just in the way that he is, leadership. Goes in and plays for the Eastman Select, I believe. Now, I'm not saying this because I didn't check it. Lonnie's telling me, so if the facts are wrong, then it's all on Lonnie. Let's just blame everything on Lonnie Liskey in this one here. But 80 goal season he has down playing there. And then he goes, and this is the thing that I actually find fascinating, Ken. And I love this analysis by Lonnie on this. So he goes up and he plays, and he's on a team that has some star players, right? Like that, those roles are already occupied. What people may not understand about the WHL and junior hockey, we always think of, the likes of the guys at the very top, right? Who walk in. Hey, I was talking about him. Landon DuPont walks in as a 15-year-old. Get ready. Hear his name, first overall. 2 years from now, it's probably going to happen. But some of these guys are just, beyond amazing. And they walk in from the time they're 15, they're McDavids, they just go, right? Most of them have to go through this process of getting on a team, establishing, staying there. And all of them come from a place where they were like one of their top guys. But guess what? If you are on a good team, those top guys already exist there. So he's playing in behind guys like Berkeley Catton. Great player, right? A guy who's going to be producing and a guy who's occupying that role of when we need a goal, Berkeley's going to be the guy who goes out there. So what does Owen do? Well, Owen, who is just a flat out, full on, comes into the WHL as just a straight up offensive player, takes the time because now he's in the queue. He can't be that guy. And he takes that time to start refining the rest of his game. The 200 foot of his game, the penalty kill, shutting down other players. So, it's a challenge, right? You go and now I can't be the player that I think I am and the player that I've always been. What do I do with that time? Do I sit and do I sulk? Do I demand a trade? Do I want to go somewhere else? Or do I sit there and I go and I take and all those other parts of my game that I can add to it that are going to eventually make me a better pro. Let's go to work on those. Lonnie believes that next year Owen is going to have an absolute explosion offensively because the deck is kind of getting cleared and he'll be the guy they're looking for. And Lonnie believes that when they go looking for that guy, he's going to be ready to be that guy. I love the analysis of this. I love the leadership quotient of this. I love the fact that he's just a built-in scorer ready to go. Brad kind of pointed to it there, but I love that he's the kind of pro who goes out and figures out a way to get better in the absence of having the opportunity to be that guy offensively. Looks again like the Jets have locked in on a guy who has the potential to really get a lot better. And you know what? Unless you're drafting right at the very top of the draft where you basically get to grab a guy and he's going to work for the most part, what you're looking for are the guys on that upward trajectory and the guys who are pushing themselves to get further up that trajectory. Everything Lonnie tells me is this is that guy.
For sure. And Owen had a solid year. He was hurt. I think he broke his foot blocking a shot similar to Dylan Sandberg. And, 34 points in 39 games, 12 more in 20 playoff games, had a nice playoff run with Spokane. He's being coached by Brad Lauer, who knows a thing or two.
I think he scored a conference winning goal, by the way, is what Lonnie had told me. That the one thing I missed here is he said when the moment is the biggest, Owen seems to be the guy who's right at the nucleus of the success of that moment.
Yeah, there you go. And I do have a small correction. It was 71 goals total for that Eastman team, 61 in the regular season, 10 more in the playoffs. So pretty high.
You know what? He's going to get a talking.
Pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and also too, and just seeing, the last couple of years, we know what the storyline has been, with Rutger want to leave, wanting not to be, not to sign and all those things. Lots of talk about passport. Yes, now 2 years in a row, the first pick that they made was Swedish. Martin is a local guy. Again, a guy in the prairies who wants to be here, talking with enthusiasm about going to games as a kid, but that's not why they're picking him, but it's a bonus for them in this situation. And Martin just talking about going to games and loving, being in the stands and seeing the enthusiasm. And, he's a guy who wants to be around the organization and just fired up to be part of it. And, again, he's not going to be the tour guide next week, but he's going to be the head of the Chamber of Commerce and saying this is a great place to be, right? Again, I'm with you. Leadership exuding. He's going to be a guy that Brad Lauer leans on next year with that team. And I think that, this is a really smart pickup and a guy that's just going to be, he looks like he's ready to excel, right? Two-way guy who's ready to take on a bigger role and is going to be, the moment won't be too big for him either.
Let me say this. I love them going local, right? Like I honestly feel like, as you touched on the Rutger McGroarty thing, I have always kind of thought I'm surprised that the Jets aren't going local more often. Now, listen, in saying that, the Jets have done a great job of finding value up and down the draft in the time they've been here. So I don't want to come across as, and I'm thinking there would have been moments that maybe they pondered it or whatever. I'm not being critical of the Jets coaching staff. I just love the idea of grabbing a local kid and giving a local kid the potential to become something here locally. And just to your point, the idea that I highly doubt that someone who lives a 20-minute drive from the arena downtown or grew up a 20-minute drive from the arena downtown is going to have a massive problem with being here. You find the pride in those guys, and I think it can be a secret weapon. Moving on to Victor Klingsell. What do you got on him, Ken?
Yeah, I've never watched him play, but you and I were watching the same broadcast, and both Sammy and especially Jason Bukala was raving about this player, his ability to shoot it, dog on a bone mentality. No, he's not 6'4", and would you love for him to be 6'4"? Of course, but tenacious, really gifted offensively, high motor. Again, a guy that is going to be fired up to be around. I think this is a smart pick. And again, it's a developmental pick, but the guys who know more than we do are pretty high on him. And I think it was said out there by one of them that could be the steal of the draft. And again, lots of people have lots of views on that subject, but later rounds, sometimes you take a bigger swing and, surprised that he was there still at the time. But we'll see his development path, but I expect, again, this is the kind of guy that late swing looks like he could be something that, could blossom as they move along.
One of the things that I think, because I thought it was hilarious, someone pointed out just once, I'd like these scouts to come out and say, terrible kid, terrible pick. What the hell were these guys thinking, right? Because there's a little bit of this, you get Sammy and Books and those guys. I think they do a good job with the truth serum. I thought Sammy.
There was quite a bit of honesty going.
Right. Well, late first round pick that Chicago takes, the kid out of high school in Minnesota, who's continues to be the
Mason West.
The high school quarterback, right? I'm looking at him here, and I'm actually watching his football highlights, and I'm thinking, you may have picked the wrong sport, kid. He's a pretty good football player, right? And he's getting D1 scholarship offers. And I'm going to tell you something right now: if you ever made the NFL as a quarterback, the payday there is a lot higher than what you're going to get in the NHL, right? But I thought Sammy did a good job of saying, Sammy didn't kind of like the idea that he was still playing this game and just hadn't, zeroed entirely in on hockey. But to the point of what we're saying, I think what you have to realize is these guys, Sammy and Books, they're thinking like scouts. So when you hear them in the 5th round say, hey, I really like this pick and blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that, they're not holding that pick on the same par as the 15th overall pick. I think that's what some people get confused sometimes. What they're doing is they're looking at from a scout's point of view and saying, okay, at this point of the draft, what can we actually expect to get from this player? And what are our abilities to take this player to another level, right? So when they're breaking these picks down, they're doing so in a way that they're saying, this is a good pick for a 5th round pick, right? I think they do a good job of that. Their reaction to Victor seemed to me to be beyond that, Ken. One of those things where it's wow, this is actually it's the 156th pick. This is just a great pick. I'm not telling you this is a good pick because it's this far down in the draft. I'm telling you it's a good pick because I think I see something in this kid that is, special to the degree that if you can tap into that tiny little pinhole of light that's coming out of him, that, we could bust this wide open and there could be a bright shining sun in there. Moving on to the 188 pick, Edison Engel, a defenseman from the Dubuque Fighting Saints. Ken, what's your takeaways?
Yeah, just interesting development path upcoming here, and we'd asked Brad about the change in the rules, and here's an interesting thing. You click on Elite Prospects, and there's Edison Engel. He's going to be joining the Brantford Bulldogs of the OHL for 25-26, but he already has a commitment for Ohio State University for 26-27, and that was previously not possible. So. Big guy, 6'2", 174 right now. We got some body to be growing into, more of a long range project, but a guy who, we'll see what happens. I mean, last year he had 17 points, but again, young guy playing in the USHL, going to have some interesting development ahead of him, but he's from that Chicagoland area, and, I'll be interested to see how the next couple of years go. But I mean, again, you're in the project territory, but size, and there's looking to be some skill and mobility there.
I'm going to tell you what I like about it, Ken. I love the exploration of the new path, right?
Sure.
I like the idea of, okay, I've done the USHL thing. I'm going to go and I'm going to get a piece of this OHL thing. Because let's be honest with ourselves. Take a look at the draft and the top end of the draft and look how well the OHL did in this. Look how well the WHL did in this. And be like, hey, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to see what that style of hockey and that league and that grind can do for me, right, Ken? So I go in and I play a game that's a little bit more conducive to replicating the pro game, more games, more travel, all those kind of things. And then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to pop over into the NCAA, and he doesn't have to. he's got it so that if he goes to Brampton, he can stay in Brampton, and maybe that's where he decides to stay and have that run out. But then he can go to college and he can take advantage of, because this is for those people who don't know. Good buddy of mine, Dwight Hurst, went through through the NCAA program for a while. And what you have there is, well, you play games on the weekend. In the meantime, you're in the gym and you're taking advantage of basically the best sports science that there is out there to take advantage of. So you're in a place where you can focus in on, you have time, you have the science to build your body to the best of your ability, to have your nutrition be peaking to the best of its ability. Sorry, folks.
Hey, live YouTube, maybe right here.
But so what I like is the path that he's opened up for himself, and the different styles that he's opened up for himself shows me that someone's willing to learn. Yeah, he's way down the list. Are the chances of him making the NHL high? No, they're not. But it's a guy who's looking to me like he's beating every bush and exploring every route onto the way there, which brings us to
curiosity.
Curiosity. 220, Jacob Cloutier from the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. Ken, what are you thinking?
Yeah, kind of interesting, right? So to me, the initial thing that I think is Parker Ford, right? So Parker Ford had this kind of dream debut, played, again, obviously different development path. Jacob is going to this, or he's a member of the Saginaw Spirit, 5'10", 170. I mean, Parker's a little bit bigger, obviously, but similar, dog on a bone kind of player again. Fast, intensity. Mark Hillier, the first thing that he said, he may be undersized, but he doesn't play an undersized game, right? So interesting guy. Again, what are you going to get? Who knows? But kind of a guy who will be interesting to watch him develop. I mean, he had a pretty productive year for an undersized guy, 23 goals, 47 points in 67 games. So we'll see what the next steps are like, but I think this is an interesting pickup. And again, we'll see these guys at development camp. And again, it's important to remember at development camp, don't be getting the scouting hat out and thinking, well, that's what this guy is going to be. Some of these guys haven't been on the ice a ton. They just got back from the combine, the other stretch of them. So it'll be interesting to see what these guys are like. But what you do get from that is you get a baseline, and then you see them at the camps later on. So, I look forward to learning more about all these guys, because as we talked about on the preview show, we haven't spent a lot of time watching them on TV, let alone in person. So I'm interested to see what these guys are like. And I'm also looking forward to seeing the development of some of these other guys we saw last year at development camp, like Alphonse Frey.
Ken, your overall take on the Jets' performance at this draft, and maybe if you want to weigh in on the winners that you or just general takeaways from the draft.
Yeah, it's always tough, right? Because again, I don't profess to be an expert, so I'm not out here handing out grades. But what we hear from other people is that they've done pretty well for themselves. And the interesting part about the Jets, no second, no fourth. So you always wonder, and we talked about this on Wednesday, Sean. With no pick in the second, are the Jets going for the safe pick like Gastrin, or are they going for a bigger swing? And some folks see this as a bigger swing, other folks see it as a slam dunk. So we'll see what happens there. But again, I think that they've got some pretty solid additions that some will take longer than others. And again, you can never really fully give grades, until 3 to 5 years in. But I like what I've heard about a lot of these players, and now we'll see how they develop moving on. And in terms of other teams, I like what a lot of teams have done. I think that you see the Philadelphia Flyers going a little bit Broad Street bullies, to be honest, in terms of Martone and the other big centerman there that they drafted with their second pick, blanking on it right now, but impressed by them. Pittsburgh drafted a lot of size. I love the Roger McQueen pick. I didn't think he'd get past 10. I know we talked to Sammy about him, the Brandon Weeking center. He missed a lot of time, yes, but 6'5" centers don't exactly grow on trees. And I think the Ducks, who already have an upward trajectory, they're going to love this guy. He's going to be another guy. You talked about Carter Barish on injury shortened season. McQueen's going to be a guy that 2 years down the road, we're going to be saying, how in the heck was that guy there at 10th overall? That's sort of how I view that part of it.
I agree. I agree 100%. Jets, I think, do what I think the only conversation to be had is the Jets are clearly in a place where they are moving picks out to try to win right now. And what it does is it gives them less opportunity to kind of hit on the things that they've shown they can hit on in the past. But I mean, if they continue to do, I think what we saw from this past year in how Kevin He turned out and how Walton turned out, some of those later picks, that, I mean, if they can keep making picks like that, then they're probably not missing much compared to a team that is just keeping their full boat of prospects, right? Listen, if your team's good, they're not going to be finding their way into the very top of the draft. So you don't get to be that team in a draft like this. And so apparently last year's draft was the same thing where, hey, you can get a really good player in the top, all a little bit of a guessing game. Jets are too good of a team in results right now to be those guys. So I think the way it works in this draft, where basically it's supposed to be a little bit of the same player from 15 way deeper into the draft, I don't mind the Jets getting in there and trying to find their special brand of what they see in players that are on the rise. I think I'm fascinated to see how it turns out here. As for the draft, I just thought this draft, Ken, felt like a little bit of a shift, right? Because we've been in a pattern where the haves and the have-nots have been clearly defined for quite a long time. There's not a lot of turnover in the league. Last year was a little bit of that, okay, teams like Anaheim are starting to say, okay, here we come. You saw Montreal and Ottawa just get over that playoff line on the other side of things. There's starting to be that little bit of a transfer. San Jose picking what they've picked over the last little while. I take a look and see how set they are both up front, because I love that Misa pick for them. They've already got Celebrini. They've already got Will Smith. And then on the back end, they get Schaefer, who is by all accounts going to be an all-timer. And last year, sorry, Ken, it's the big defenseman that they got from London, Sam Dickinson, that they had last year. Like, it looks like they have two monoliths on defense and three absolutely central nucleus type players up front. They've got Askarov in net. They've got another guy that to me, they picked him late in the first round, to me has been described as maybe Canada's next great goaltending hope, like the guy who everyone has been waiting for all these years. So they're stocked in net. They've got major players on defense, major players on offense. I think at some point we're going to look at that team and be like, wow, did they do an unbelievable job of building a core in those years when they were down? Utah picking up what they were able to pick up, I think is just absolutely huge. I think that they start to make the turn next year, and it's sounding like they're going to be trying to be invested in adding players. Everyone knows I like the way that they played the Jets last year. They needed to find a way to do it more consistency. They're young. If you take a look at how young they are, that next step for those young players is they're showing what they're capable of. Now let's show it consistently. They're a team that's going to start being a handful. And who else did I really like? I mean, the Islanders, the Noah Dobson trade, I know they were going to have to move that player. And I know that the picks that they moved them for, the 15 and 16 pick, are supposed to be in that. You can get a guy at 15 who's the same as 50. They get Eklund on top of Schaefer. Eklund thought of extremely highly by a lot of people and was supposed to be one of those players before the drop-off. And then the defenseman that they picked up just looks like an absolute animal at the 16 spot. Ken, if you remember his name. Yeah. Boy. He looks like a gamer. So I think they did a lot to help themselves. There's a turn coming, and the teams that have been stockpiling players over the years, I think, have put themselves in a really good position to start making that transition. Like you're seeing part of that transition we're talking about. How many years have we talked about the Montreal Canadiens and all the picks they had in the draft? And you can see now they're at their stage where they are so stocked with draft picks that drafting is almost useless to them. Time to start moving them out. And that's how they go get Noah Dobson. All of a sudden, the Montreal Canadiens defense core looks unbelievable with a lot of great young prospects coming. Look for that team to be active in trades to try and get better. This, for the first time to me, feels like we're seeing the wave change. There's been a giant wave of teams for a long time in the NHL, and it's starting to feel like that next wave is starting to wash in. I'm excited to see where the league is heading in the next number of years.
Yeah, and sorry, it was Jack Nesbitt was the center I was thinking of, and I had the brain cramp from Philly there. So yeah, a fun day.
Unlike me, you don't have a great podcast partner who looks up those things and helps you along the way. I just rely on you. You can't rely on me. So that's how it goes in life.
And I said for Frosty about Dobson. Dobson 1 year away from UFA. That's why they moved him for futures essentially. Just quickly, we won't dig too deep, but just quickly in terms of free agency, Ehlers, my prediction will remain to be Carolina. We know that Elliot Friedman reported that his camp has told the Jets that he hasn't closed the door, but he will be going to unrestricted free agency on July 1st. I just can't see a scenario where Carolina doesn't make the offer, especially if Mitch Marner gets off the board and ends up in Vegas. I think that the Ehlers to Carolina just makes too much sense for it to not happen. I wonder about your thoughts on Brock Besser. I shared some thoughts with the Illegal Curve boys this morning, but what do you think about Besser as a possible alternative? I think he would definitely consider the Jets, and there'll be competition for his services, but as a 28-year-old, is 6-time 20-goal guy, not as dynamic, obviously, but he's a consistent goal scorer who our pal Ian McIntyre mentioned to me this week. He's really improved his defensive game. So I could see that being a fit, but we'll see.
The most fascinating thing about the Winnipeg Jets, in my mind, and I think it makes them one of the most fascinating teams over the last number of years, is they went from having a problem room to one of the best rooms in the NHL. And credit to the players in there, and especially a guy like Adam Lowry and the leadership group there for kind of being the guys who had been in a room that was considered a problem and turning that over. The Vancouver is the team I'm looking at now and saying that's that room. You heard me talk about it earlier this year. Felt that way. That room, a lot of guys, they want to escape rooms like that. They just want to get out of it. Those rooms they stink. It's toxic. The culture sucks. So that to me is why I was not one bit surprised that Brock Besser, we're not having the same conversations about Brock Besser that we had about Nikolai Ehlers, about how, eventually Nick Ehlers is going to go test free agency. But there was a lot of talk about how much he liked it here and how much he wanted to win and, good conversations. With Brock Besser, it felt like it was like the year ended. He basically said I'm getting out of here, right? So the value for a player like that sometimes is just getting to a good room. And Besser strikes me as one of those players that, if properly supported, and who the Jets are so good at that. Scott Arniel has been great at this year. Bones was great at it. As an organization, they support their players so much. So you can take a guy like Brock Besser and be like, whatever you need and whatever you think you need to get the best out of Brock Besser, that's what we want. That's what you want. Let's work together on that. I think that becomes a very, very attractive proposition. That said, there's other good teams around the league that can offer those things. Perfetti will make Besser a 35-goal scorer again. I'd be more inclined to think Jonathan Toews would be the guy who would make him that. But
together, that'd be a good line.
For sure. So a good place to play. He knows Kyle Connor. They played against each other from the time they were in the USHL and played each other through college. So I'm sure they've had conversations and he knows how Kyle would feel about the Winnipeg Jets. So I see it as a fit. Like I'd said, there's other teams out there who can offer these kind of things. The question has to become, especially that a Minnesota boy who, when he was young, decided to go to college at UND just down the road and took a lot of heat from Minnesota hockey for leaving and going to the rival. Would lightning strike twice? Would Brock Besser, who's probably going to get a really good offer from the Minnesota Wild, forego his hometown of Minnesota to leave and go not too far up the road to a regional rival and sign there? That for me is the big question. Can lightning strike twice? I guess we'll have to see. Ken, we should shut it down here. Great job on this. Great job setting up Brad. He was unbelievable. And I guess I should thank that no good Lonnie Liskey for the great.
You better thank my former Flyers teammate.
Well,
you better.
Whatever. Maybe you go thank him. I can't bring myself to doing it. Hey, we sat. as journalists, or as we get older, we sacrifice things in life. And young Sean Reynolds giving a shout out to Lonnie Liskey. At some point, I would have been so upset with myself. But I guess we age or mature, or maybe we just lose our values. What it feels like's happening here. Anyways, anything to say before we go, Ken?
No sponsors. That's all.
Well, first off, we just want to give a shout out to Vittorio Rossi, who clearly isn't dressing us today. Sometimes we need to give you an example of what we look like when we aren't dressed by Vittorio Rossi, so you can understand the absolutely amazing job that Frankie and the boys do. So if you're looking at us right now and thinking, my God, what happened to these guys? You gotta take a look in the mirror and say, maybe that's happening to you too, but you can fix it by going on down to Vittorio Rossi, walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Shout out to Pristine Roofing, who wanted me to give you the shout out that their Pay It Forward program is back up and running. If you want to get a hold of Pristine Roofing and let them know someone in your life that may need a new roof, isn't able to pay for it, brother, sister, friend, whoever. Maybe there's a house 2 doors down. You want to go knock on their door. You got to get a hold of North End Rick at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want to get a hold of for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. Also for the Pay It Forward program, you can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Shout out to Cambrian Credit Union, who, hey, I love it when you folks do this. Someone got a hold of me directly and asked me who they can get a hold of to get a mortgage at Cambrian Credit Union. I have no problem doing that at all, putting you in touch with the very person, the very manager, the very teller that you need to talk to for your needs. Please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll pass that information along, as Ken and I are both longtime clients of Cambrian Credit Union, big believers in what they do, and are extremely comfortable taking you to a place that's treated us so well. Shout out to the folks at Flame and Comfort. Again, Ken, really looking forward to meeting up with them down at the K&R event, which is officially sold out. Ken, looking forward to it. I reiterate, folks, we're going to have at least one special guest there. Not gonna say who, but hopefully the folks at Flame and Comfort are impressed by the people that we bring down there, because we've been so impressed with them. And you should be impressed by their new their new showroom that is ready, and they're in the process of getting going here. You know about the hot takes. You don't need the hot takes. You don't need to be looking for hot takes to head on down there. You can just go head on down there. They will take care of all your fireplace, wood stove, inserts, and hearth related needs. Ken, did you want to give a shout out to Sweet Lou?
For sure. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, you can contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
All our business folks out there, and I know there's some of them, if you haven't looked into what the Johnson Group can do for you, I suggest you do. The Kenny and Renny OGs are Canada's #1 employee benefits plan. That's Chambers plan, and it gives you a competitive edge. Why? Well, a Chambers plan is a simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And of course, shout out for the Keg, which I am going to be taking my nephew to. It's his favorite restaurant.
Nice.
He graduated. I saw him at the beer gardens in Lactabani yesterday. And let's just say, I'm not going to give you the details, but the young pup tried to take on the old wolf, and things didn't turn out for him. But they will turn out for him when I take him to celebrate his day at the Keg. Really proud of my nephew, Jack, and his favorite restaurant. Can't wait to take him there. I'm proud because of how much support they've given us, how great their food is.
Awesome.
And the gift certificates for the folks, great stuff. And just one last, really looking forward to seeing all the folks that have bought tickets and are going to be down at the Kenny and Renny year-ender, where we will send her at TransCanada Brewing Company. We love that event. We love our opportunity to see everybody down there. Can't wait to see you down there. July 8th at 1-1290 Kenniston. In the meantime, head on down there, grab some drinks, grab some beers, grab some pizza and some food. Amazing environment, as you will see if you were one of the people coming to the year-ender where we send her. Ken?
Just last one, that new address for the good folks at Flame and Comfort, 1465 St. James Street.
Excellent stuff.
Go see
Okay,
Dwayne
Ken,
and company.
You bet. Anything to say before we go?
No, fun week ahead. We'll have a free agency wrap coming up July 1st at some point, I believe. And then we may have some special guests of our own for another pop-up later in the week during development camp. That's our guarantee, and then the tease for what is on the horizon.
Excellent stuff. Sorry, this just popped up here. Coach Rennie says tickets or just show up. Tickets were sold out probably 6 weeks to 2 months ago. So for future K&R events, if you don't want to be standing outside window dressing or looking through the front window at the party happening, like what may happen to Coach Rennie, I'm sorry that's happening, but folks got to jump on these things. Our events, they sell out. We're very proud. It's because we have amazing support from all of you. So don't wait next time. Jump all over it. That's it for us. Happy long weekend, everybody. I guess we'll enjoy what you can of it. And Ken, you as well. You got a supper to get to. Go enjoy yourself. Bye-bye, everybody.
Good show. Cheers.